This is tough stuff, and I agree with Representative Widlitz that we're being asked to make some very tough decisions here tonight, as sadly this chamber has been asked to do several times in the last few years. Nobody likes being in this situation. Democrats, Republicans, senators, representatives, nobody wants to be in the situation that we find ourselves in, the very undesirable situation to have to make tough choices between which programs to cut and which taxes to raise, etc. It's not a desirable situation, and I don't pretend to think that it is. The thing I think that separates some of our viewpoints on how to resolve this matter, though, is whether we continue to do the same thing that we've been doing over the last several years. We continue to borrow to pay operating expenses, and you're seeing that here in the bill that's before you. We have used one-time revenues and sweeps to prop up this year's budget and saying, well, we'll figure it out next time. We'll figure out how to plug that hole in the next biennium budget. We're undoubtedly imposing new taxes. As Representative Cafaro said, we are imposing an extension of a corporate tax surcharge and other taxes that we're continuing. The generation tax, albeit for a shorter amount of time. We're breaking promises that we've made, and there's no question about it. We made a promise years ago to the business community that we were going to sunset this corporate tax surcharge after just a few years, and of course that has continued. Many years ago we made the promise that we were going to have the real estate conveyance tax be a quote-unquote temporary tax, and that is still on our books here today. And in many ways, you can't blame businesses and individuals from looking at Connecticut and saying, well, when is this going to change? When are you guys going to stabilize your economy? So many of us believe that the way to get out of this mess is not to break those promises, but to grow the economy, to give the business community confidence that there will be an opportunity for them to invest here and create jobs, that we're not going to continue to whack them every time we get into a jam and tell them it's only going to be a temporary thing and tell them it's only going to be a 2-year thing. And if you talk to people on the street, that's what they say. Investors, small business owners, that's what they say all the time, that we're unpredictable, that you can't predict what we're going to do here in the legislature, because every time we get into an economic jam, we're going to continue to do the same thing. We're going to continue to raise taxes. We're going to extend taxes that we're supposed to sunset. We're going to make things harder for people to do business, make it harder for people to do business here in the state of Connecticut. And so at the same time that we are going back on our promise to cities and towns that we were going to share sales tax revenue with them, which we just made that promise 2 years ago in our last biennial budget, at that same time, and in that very same section, we're repealing the luxury tax on boats, which is the only tax, by the way, that's being repealed in the budget that's before you. Think about that. We're telling cities and towns that they have to do without a promise that we made to them 2 years ago, and at the same time, we're repealing a tax on a luxury product. And I'm all for reducing taxes, and I'm all for encouraging investment and growth. It doesn't seem like the appropriate time for us to cut that tax while we're telling towns and cities that are already struggling with high energy costs and high labor costs, etc., that we're going to go back on a promise that we made to them just 2 years ago. It shouldn't be a surprise that people look at us kind of funny when we do that. Actually reinstituting the sales tax exemption on clothing and footwear, but we're not doing it until the next biennium. It actually seems like kind of a funny place to do this, right? We're not going to do it in the next 2 years. We're going to do it in the next biennium budget. We're making that policy change here right now. Must make people think, well, if you don't have the money to do it right now, are you going to have the money to do it in 2 years? Or are you going to continue to postpone that, as you, the legislature, have continued to postpone the elimination of taxes that were supposed to sunset? I can't imagine that people have a whole lot of confidence, given our track record as a legislature, that we're going to eliminate that we're going to reinstitute that sales tax exemption in 2 years. The Keno issue is I guess it's intriguing. I'm not exactly really excited about balancing our budget with new entertainment sources and new gaming. I think we should be balancing our budget by growing the economy in areas of manufacturing and growing small businesses. But the very idea that we are balancing our budget on Keno, not knowing whether or not there is an agreement, but yet on the hope and prayer that there will be an agreement, and that the agreement will be to our liking, and that the agreement will be the way that we want, it's a little troubling. It's a little troubling. You know, a few hours ago, we increased some charges on people's electricity bills here in the state of Connecticut, on the electricity bills of ratepayers. But we increased charges in the Conservation and Load Management Fund. In fact, we put into law, or if this bill becomes law, there's a potential that the Conservation and Load Management Fund charges will be doubled on ratepayers' bills. Will be doubled. So what we did here today is we asked ratepayers to double their contributions into these very laudable goals. And then here in this very same budget, we're taking money out of one of those funds with a very similar goal, administered by the very same agency, in the very same day. But in the very same day that we doubled people's electricity bills to pay for a laudable goal, we are poised right now to turn around and take money out of a fund administered by Cephia with a similar goal. I don't know that the ratepayers of Connecticut can feel really comfortable that we're doing the right thing here. I don't know that the ratepayers of Connecticut can feel like that the bill of goods that we sold them was that we were going to invest those dollars in conservation and load management and energy efficiency will actually be used when in the very budget bill that we're about to pass hours later, we're yanking some of those funds away and using it to balance the budget. Think about that. Even though they're the same people, ratepayers and taxpayers are the same people, we are taking ratepayers' dollars off of their electric bill and using them to balance the state budget. We are cross-subsidizing one public policy initiative with another. We're saying ratepayers have to pay more because the budget's out of balance.